lied about a girls' trip and flew out to cheat. He hacked my phone and exposed me to my family. I lied about a girls' trip and flew out of the state to cheat, and I was rather meticulous in hiding this bit of information from my husband. In fact, there was nothing to give away my plans or make him suspect, but my perfect plan wasn't at all perfect, because my husband did discover my affair, and he hacked my phone for the evidence he needed to ruin me. It's so upsetting for something as insignificant as that to ruin the good thing we have between us, and I didn't think I had a choice but to do what I did. It was a matter of survival, but Matt wouldn't understand that, and now he's just wanting to dissolve our marriage and ruin me in his anger. Matt and I have only been married a year, but Nick, the guy I cheated on Matt with, and I have been together for longer than that. I wouldn't call what we had a relationship, and I cannot even call us friends with benefits. Nick only called for me when he needed a booty call, and his wife, who was more interested in their businesses and their reputation in public rather than in their marriage, wasn't available. He gave me money in exchange for sex, and we had a mutual understanding right from the start. He was a busy man and only asked for me when he needed me, and he didn't exactly need a mistress, as he was too afraid to go to clubs for fear of being recognized or even contracting a sexually transmitted infection. I was the safe option. And I was out doing what I usually did with him, although I didn't exactly cheat on Matt right from the beginning of our relationship. Nick and I lost contact for over 2 years, which was the period I met Matt. Matt was the cousin of my best friend, and when he came into town after being transferred to his company's branch in town, she was only too eager to be a matchmaker. Matt was nice, kind even, and he was quite patient, and he was different from every other guy I have met before. He was so old-fashioned too, and didn't allow us to have sex throughout the short period of 6 months that we dated. At that point, it really was refreshing being with someone who wasn't with you for your body alone, so I went with the flow and we got married a little while after Matt proposed. We were happy and everything was really good except for the fact that we were struggling financially, which wasn't what I was used to. My parents weren't exactly financially buoyant. In fact, I was used to doing stuff to get money for myself regardless of whether or not it was legal. And when I started sleeping with Nick, I suddenly didn't have to struggle or try to save up to get a particular thing I wanted. He was filthy rich and he spent well on me. I met him through a dating site, and a friend had told me that I could get good guys who were ready to spend lavishly on girls if I was being wise with it. So I heeded her advice, and I opened myself an account even though it was way too expensive than was necessary. But I had a goal, and I was going to fulfill it. I posted a rather revealing picture of myself without showing my face. The picture didn't reveal too much, but didn't make a show of covering up too, and my DM was filled with horny men, but I ignored them, and I had taken an interest in Nick instead. He didn't try to swoon me or try to get to know me better. He had instead gone straight to the point. He wanted one night with me, and he was willing to pay. I decided to play along and asked him how much he was willing to pay, but when he named a figure that I have never heard in my life, I quickly sat up. He asked me to come to a certain address, which turned out to be a hotel, and he had asked me to bring my test results of being clean to have sex with. There were no questions asked between us. He just looked over the results and, clearly satisfied, asked me to strip and jump into bed. After what felt like hours, we were finally done, and he sent me the money as he promised. That was how Nick and I became sex partners, but Nick really did come and go. Sometimes he was gone for weeks, sometimes even a month, and he was never really stable. I knew it was because of his family. He didn't want his wife suspecting that he was having an affair, especially because she was more powerful than he was, and she is apparently the owner of the wealth bestowed upon them by her father. He only had the rights to the money as her husband and the father of their 2 kids, but then I didn't mind that he was married. I was only in it for the financial gains, but then Nick just stopped showing up. He wouldn't call or text me like he usually did, and I had no money with me. I had spent it all, and I was getting really desperate. He was the only person I knew that could give me the sort of money I needed. But when he didn't show up for 4 whole months, I concluded that Nick wasn't going to come again. But then I had met Matt, and although he was just a banker, he was a hard-working one and was always trying to earn enough to keep our little family afloat. But then he bought us a house through a mortgage loan, and paying back was bending all our budgets. We had to cut down on a lot of things. Well, I had to cut down on a lot of things, like shopping, which wasn't even the usual one I was used to with Nick, but manageable, and also going out with friends wasn't doable anymore. Usually I was the one paying for their lunch or spa treatment, or sometimes even their shopped goods when we went out. But I couldn't afford to anymore, so I started finding different excuses to avoid going because I didn't want to be ridiculed. Staying with Matt in that whole buck of debts was really stressing, and he was trying everything to keep us afloat, but I wasn't comfortable, and I expressed it. I stopped cooking him dinner and waiting for him to get back from work, and whenever he tried to touch me or sleep with me, I was agitated and I started to insult him or tell him to do what his mates were doing and get rich by it. You see, Matt was a faithful worker in the bank. He didn't steal or try to manipulate figures like his coworkers were doing, but that honorable act of his wasn't getting him anywhere. We were just drowning in debts while his friends who were bold enough to manipulate those figures were happily buying cars and building houses instead of taking a loan like he did. So it made me so frustrated. Nick came back into my life like a knight in shining armor at the time. It was just a simple hey, and he had texted from the dating app where I met him before. I hadn't deleted the dating app for some reason, perhaps because I was expecting his text, or maybe it was just too expensive to delete my account. I got a notification from the app that someone texted me, and when I checked thinking it was one of those other men who was still bothering me, I was surprised to see the text was from him, so I replied immediately. Nick didn't ask any questions or answer any of mine. He had instead texted me an address and the time I should be there. I could have easily told him I was married and I didn't do stuff like that anymore, but remembering the Gucci bag I saw online and how pricey it had been, I found myself texting a okay to his message. Matt wasn't home at that time, so it was easy for me to leave the house and return without being noticed that I ever left. I estimated the time he would return and how many hours I would spend with Nick before I had to come back home. And having perfectly done my algebra, I dressed up and quickly left for the hotel, which was pretty easy to get to from my place. Nick was waiting for me when I arrived, and as usual, even though it's been almost more than a year since we last met, it was easy to catch up from where we left. Nick noticed the wedding ring in my hand, and he had asked when I got married. I was really shocked because that was the first time he was asking me any personal questions. I told him I was, but I quickly dismissed my marriage as nothing. So I wouldn't get him turned off, or even worse, he told me he couldn't deal with married women. I told him I was only married to him because I was forced, and that it didn't mean anything, that it was a consensual marriage and we both had a thing or two to gain from it. I managed to sum up my marriage that I had better happily and in love with Matt as nothing just to get the overly expensive bag I saw online. Nick was quite satisfied with my explanation, lies, and had continued in his attempt to remove my dress and proceeded to kiss me properly while trying to discard his own clothes too. He was all rushed, and before 30 minutes, he was lying down beside me, breathing rather heavily. I laid quietly beside him, expecting the next instruction, which never came, as he just picked his phone and wired me a huge amount of money. I was really happy, and I immediately put on my clothes and left. Although I didn't go home directly, I went shopping for that bag, and I also bought some other things that I had always wanted but had no money for. Matt had seen the bag and the new clothes I bought the next morning. We shared a wardrobe with his clothes and shoes on one side of the rail and mine on the other, so there was no way I could hide those things from him. I told him the truth. I had prepared on my way back home from the mall. I told him a friend had insisted I go out since it had been a while, and she decided to buy me a bag and the other clothes too as a gift. Matt looked surprised but didn't say anything, and only just lifted an eyebrow while knotting his tie for work. I didn't exactly care whether or not he believed me. I was too happy to have that bag and more stuff in my collection that was swarming with old things, especially after I got married to Matt. And it was why it was easy for me to go again to a different hotel at a different time when Nick called for me again 3 days later. I was the same again, spending as much as I would like, hanging out with my friends whom I told I was only a bit unhappy as the reason for avoiding them for all that while. I was paying their bills again and watched them hail me and wish to be like me or have a man like Matt in their lives. The thing is, they didn't know that I wasn't spending Matt's money or that Matt himself didn't have the kind of money I was squandering in a day. They never attended my wedding, and that had been entirely my fault because I didn't want them there at all to see the simple wedding dress I wore or the cake that looked awkward at different corners and tasted the same. I didn't want them mocking me, so I lied to them that the wedding was a family affair and no one else was invited. They don't even know Matt personally because they've never met him. To them, he was a busy man who was always flying around different states for work. They never visited me at home because Matt didn't want anyone around the house, and we had tight security, which was only Moro, our little dog who was more of a pet than security. It was easy to keep up the pretense and be who I had always wanted to be with Nick's money, and so I did. I allowed him to demand my presence whenever he needed me, and I answered his calls without hesitation or stalling. He was my key to living my dream life. Don't get me wrong, though. I loved Matt, and I still do, very much so. If not, I wouldn't be here trying to expose all my dirty secrets so you guys can help me out with a solution to our now so rocky marriage. But at that point, I couldn't help it. I wanted everything. A good life with money at my disposal anytime I needed it, and also a life of being married to the man I love. Call me selfish, but it was simply my only thought at that time. Something, however, did change within the 3 weeks of being with Nick. It was Nick. He was different than the last time we were together before he ghosted me and I had gotten married. He was more demanding this time. He wanted us to go on a trip together, or spend more than an afternoon or morning with him. He was asking questions about my marriage, things he never did before, but I didn't question it at the time, even though it took a while to adjust to the new change. I just had to up my game, lie better, and create situations that would set me up for spending the night out. It was either a trip to my mom's place, which was quite far as a 6 hours drive from our home, so I couldn't get back home the same day. Sometimes it was a friend who wanted to introduce me to a new job that would cause me to travel for some sort of documentation. Then finally, it was a job. I left the house as early as he did, and I came back around the same time that he did too. To Matt, I was working as a secretary in a law firm, and my job was really demanding. There was no reason not to believe me because he dropped me off at work every day, and he would see me enter the building. But what he didn't know at the time was that as soon as I walked into the building and was sure he was gone, I turned around and ordered a cab to my real destination, which is a hotel where Nick was. Nick changed hotels to avoid suspicion from his wife. She apparently had access to seeing how he spent money, which was why he was always sending me money from a different account, which didn't even have his name on it. On other days, I would tell Matt that I had to go out of town with my boss for work, and instead would go on a trip with Nick. He usually did go on business trips with me as his mistress, but I never made an appearance in public. I only would sit or go out shopping on my own with his card while waiting for him to get back from work. I really was very good at hiding my relationship with Nick, and I cannot guess how exactly Matt had suspected or even found out about our relationship. I even would at the end of the month add some money to our savings and also drop some money for buying groceries so that Matt could put in more money for the mortgage loan he was paying off, just so he didn't suspect anything. I would send money to his mom and my mom from my salary just so no one ever suspected me, and for a long time no one did, and I guess I must have relaxed because of it. I wonder now if it was that one time I left my phone carelessly on the couch, right beside Matt, when I had got up to check dinner, which was on the cooking gas, and Nick had messaged me, dropping the address of the place he wanted to meet me the next day per usual. But then again, when I came back into the room, Matt's expression was the same. He was still on his laptop typing away furiously, and there was no giveaway that he saw anything or had gone through my phone. Or perhaps it was also that one time when I had been on the phone with one of my friends, who was saying just how much she missed me and wanted us to hang out, which I'm sure wasn't true. She probably only missed the bills I settled on their steads and not me. And Matt happened to be beside me, although made no signs that he was listening in on my conversation. In fact, he had his head stuck in the ledger he was doing something on. The problem was only yesterday I had lied to Matt that I was spending the day with my girls, and I didn't come back until late at night with the excuse that I lost track of time. You guys may think I was only in the relationship I had with Nick for the financial gains alone, but that's not all true. The truth would also be that although Matt was a real gentleman, especially during sex, he wasn't quite as good as Nick was. Nick was demanding and assertive when it came to sex, and that was something Matt lacked. No matter how many times we've slept together, he would always ask me at the end if he hadn't hurt me or if I was quite satisfied. It frustrated me a lot. I didn't want to have to tell him what to do to satisfy me. I wanted him to guess or just do it. Be aggressive, spank me like Nick did, or just not wait till we get to the bed before instigating sex. I wanted him to pull me close on the sofa while we were watching a movie together like we often did on weekends and do exactly what they were doing in the movies. But he never did. He was the safe sex Matt, and he wanted us to have babies, so he was always helping to calculate my ovulation days. Not that he knew at that point that I was halting the whole process with the pills I was taking. Not because I didn't want Matt's babies, but I was scared to get pregnant and wondered who the father of the baby was, or worse still, Nick would stop demanding my presence, which automatically meant no money. So I hid my pills inside my drawer beside my underwear, where I was sure that Matt never pried. Funny how no matter the countless times I had gone on several trips with Nick, sometimes 2 days, sometimes 3, I had even gone on a week-long trip with him before under the pretense of work outside town. And while I laid naked in bed with Nick beside me, I would speak to Matt lying about how tedious work was, because my boss was particularly demanding. And when I got off the phone, Nick would just smirk and proceed to the other room in the suite to call his own family. The least of the trips so far had been 2 days, but this one that Matt had caught me on, was just a day's trip. Nick wasn't supposed to bring me along for the trip, but he changed his mind last minute and asked me to come. Of course, an all-paid expense trip. I couldn't say no because it was Las Vegas, one of the places I've always dreamt of being in, so I just accepted the offer. I told Matt that a friend decided to celebrate her birthday and wanted us girls to go on a trip to Vegas. I even told him I refused to go, but she had insisted and had even bought my plane ticket. I told him it was only a day's trip and I would be back the next evening. Matt said nothing and just shrugged, not even bothering to look up from what he was doing on his laptop. I didn't mind so long I had my excuse already. I packed a one-night bag just for show. I knew I would definitely be back with more dresses than our already overpouring wardrobe could contain. And besides, I kept most of the dresses in a small room I rented in the next street, so Matt didn't suspect anything. There was only so much lie I could tell about my friend giving me, or buying me clothes and shoes that were even more expensive than our mortgage loan. He must have known then that I was lying, and maybe I should have suspected that he knew. He was unusually quiet and reserved. He responded with a shrug and a nod instead of actual words, and he never even tried to kiss me goodbye, which he always did. But I was so excited to be in the city I've only ever dreamt of being in that I ignored all the signs that were right there for me to see, and I went on that trip. I had fun on the trip. Nick's work there was inevitably postponed because his partner had some other business emergencies to attend to, so we spent that morning and afternoon exploring. We took different pictures, or rather I did because I took the pictures with my phone. Many of us exploring different locations. I was even so daring that I took pictures of us in the hotel room. We had gotten back from our tour, and I had taken a shower while Nick was taking a phone call at that time, naked and sitting on the bed. So I took a picture with him in the background. It was only meant for safekeeping. I just wanted to keep the memory of coming to my dream city. I meant to delete them, particularly that one with Nick naked in it, after some minutes, but it totally slipped my mind, especially when Nick distracted me again with yet another round of sex. But it was a mistake because that particular picture had made headlines in my family group. I had not even known about the post until I got home that day. My phone was low when I left the hotel and headed for home because I forgot to charge it. I didn't bother with it, especially after realizing that Matt wasn't going to call me at all. But on reaching the house, I didn't meet Matt at home and the lock was different. I couldn't get in, and I tried severally with all the keys with me, but none was working. It was obvious it was a new lock, and so I decided to spend the night with a friend of mine under the pretense of coming to say hi after so long. She happily allowed me to stay and even gave me a charger to charge my phone. Immediately I put on my phone, though. That was when my nemesis started. I was getting different messages from the family group and also individually from my mom, my sister and brother, even my cousins too. I didn't understand what was going on until I went to the family group and I saw some pictures pinned there. They were sent by Nick, who had been added to my family group after we got married, and when I loaded the pictures, to my horror, they were of Nick and I. There were screenshots of messages of different hotel addresses between Nick and I. There were also pictures of my last trip, and especially that photo I had taken of us in the room. I was so shocked and I didn't understand what was happening. I tried reaching Matt, but he wasn't picking my calls or responding to my texts. My friend, noticing my agitation, had asked me what was wrong, and in my desperate attempt to seek for some help as regards what to do, I told her everything about Nick. But instead of the sympathy and the help I expected from her, she had coldly opened her door and asked me to leave. She wanted no part in my mess. I went back home, but Matt still wasn't home and the lock still wouldn't bulge. My family were calling all at the same time, but I was too scared to pick their calls, too scared to hear their judgmental tone and their "I'm so disappointed in you" speech, particularly knowing how conservative my family is. I tried again, reaching out to Matt, but he still wouldn't respond. And then he had come home when I had given up hope and was about to leave. When he stepped out of his car, his expression was blank, and his eyes so empty and emotionless as he stared at me. I tried to explain to him that it was a mistake and it wasn't at all what he had seen. He just watched me stumble and stammer through my words, and then finally he had spoken, his voice so cold it made me shiver. He told me he had known about my affair 2 days before, and he had decided to hack my phone and get the evidence he needed to teach me a lesson for all the lies I've told. He told me that he wasn't done with me yet, and that my family was just step one in his plans of destroying me. He told me that he would destroy everything that I held dear and ensure that I lose everything. And then he left me standing there looking at him, lost for words, and he unlocked the door, went in, and slammed the door in my face. I couldn't speak, and I don't know how long I stood there staring at the door, because by the time I dragged my heavy feet away from the house, it was really dark. And I didn't even know I was crying until I felt my cheeks wet. Seeing Matt like that was like watching a whole different series that you weren't used to at all. He felt and talked differently, and his every word was laced with venom. Venom aimed at me, and I had no idea what to do about it. His eyes that once looked at me with love and nothing else now looked at me in hate and disgust. I even feel disgusted with myself remembering the way he stared at me in anger, mixed with disgust and hate that day at the house. And now, it's been 4 whole days since then, and I'm so scared. I'm so scared because Matt has been silent and hasn't done anything other than sending the pictures to our family group. I'm scared because his promises of pain and torture haven't yet left my head. I don't know what he plans to do, and I really regret everything I did to hurt Matt. Do you guys think that with everything I've done that I may still get a chance with Matt again? That maybe he will forgive me and accept me back? Or that maybe he will really not do anything else other than the damage he has already done with my family? Update. Hello, Reddits. It's been 3 weeks and it has finally happened. The exact thing I've been so scared of. Matt has finally made his move and I'm officially doomed both online and physically. I don't know how Matt had gotten access or even known Nick's wife, but he had, and he sent those screenshots and pictures to her. And right now, all my assets, everything I ever got from Nick has been seized. My bank is frozen and now I have nothing to my name. Nick is also in the middle of a messy divorce. He's been thrown out on the streets by his wife and she's refusing any access to their kids. And the crazy thing is, he's blaming me for it when obviously we both are equally at fault for everything that's happening to us. Matt had also not ended there. He had sent those incriminating pictures to everyone. My friends, people at the local church we attended, and his family. He wanted no one to have a doubt what sort of person I was. I am a cheating, lying, selfish, and greedy wife, and he showed that to everyone. And now everyone avoids me like a plague. They want nothing to do with me, yet my name is in their mouth every time I walk by. The whispers, the stink eye, the finger pointing, the crossing to the other side of the street just to avoid me. Everything just is getting really too much for me to handle. And then Nick's wife won't stop until she finds everything legal to ruin me with. I keep getting charges for stuff I never knew existed, and a lot of fabricated evidence against me. A lawsuit and debts hand in hand. It doesn't help that a divorce letter from Matt arrived. It doesn't matter to him that my life is falling apart in every way. It really shouldn't. I only ever disregarded him and insulted him by cheating repeatedly. I lied several times that I became perfect at it. I mocked his trust in me, and I know I deserve everything that's coming to me now. After my first post on this app, I thought that maybe my life would miraculously get better, that somehow I would get a solution to my problem of my life falling apart. But instead, I had gotten reproach, hatred, anger, and bitterness from you guys. You guys have made me feel even more ashamed of myself. Your harsh words and backlashing comments have only made me realize just how delusional I must have been to imagine or think for 1 second after everything I've done that I could even get another chance with Matt. I know that I should never have thought about it. How could I have ever thought that I could get away with everything I did? How could I have ever thought of myself as being right when I was sleeping with Nick while kissing Matt and behaving like a good wife? I thought once that maybe one day Matt would find out about my infidelity, but I never thought his reaction would be this. I thought that maybe somehow he would just forgive me and we would move on and be how we always were. But now I know that I was never going to get that chance. Matt was never going to forgive me, and my life is never going to get the chance to be normal again. Not after what I've done. I just sit here in my dark room, surrounded by walls, and I ponder on how Matt would have felt when he realized the extent of my betrayal. How he must have felt at that moment, maybe hurt or anger, and how that must have transformed into the quest for revenge. I still remember like yesterday that day when I stayed right outside the house that I used to call mine, and I waited for him. I remember the look in his eyes. I remember how much the look in his eyes had changed from that loving and trusting look to that. I feel so horrible, and I wish I had the power to fix things. Maybe then I would be able to remove Nick completely out of my life, ignoring his messages and blocking him. I would focus on my marriage and helping Matt. I was only being a selfish person, and I wanted to just enjoy money without working for it, and now I've ended up at the other side of hell because of it. It's almost surreal. I wish everything was really only a dream that I would wake up from, or maybe it had happened to someone else, not me. I've lost everything and everyone, but nothing beats the loss of Matt, because it's only now that I no longer have any access or rights to him that I understand just how important Matt is to me. And I've lost him. I have, and it's so painful. It feels like my heart is breaking every second knowing that this is it for us. I don't know how to get past this. I really don't know what to do. All I know is I'm so heartbroken, and I regret everything so much. Update. Hello, Reddits. This is my last post here. Time has really passed by, and everyone seems to be moving on. Days rolled into weeks, and weeks have now rolled into months. But yet it's like my day stopped that day Matt had looked me in the eye with nothing but disgust and anger. My clock has stopped moving since then, and I don't think there's any reset that can get it to move any other way. I feel like a failure and a shame to everything that love stands for. Love would not have done what I did to Matt, and love would have patiently gotten over the hard times together, striving for the future. It's almost like after I left Matt, he got the boost he needed, been promoted at work rapidly thrice and getting different offers from other banks to work with them. I heard from a friend who thought I should know how Matt was doing now, although her intention had been filled with malice. She had obviously wanted to make me feel even more guilty for doing what I did to Matt. I have never understood loneliness until now. It's almost like I've ceased existing to everyone else. My mom still wouldn't speak to me even though it's been months, and my siblings practically ignore me. My friends, whom I had spent most of the money I got from my affair on, avoid me like a plague. They blocked me immediately after they had seen the pictures on every social media. One of them, who had always sung about how much she envied me, had even made a post recently and talked about cheating. She was obviously talking to me and had probably unblocked me so I could see that post. All that wouldn't have mattered if the one person I so badly want to hold on to is still in the picture. But I guess I did it all by myself. I pushed him out with my own hands, and now I have to bear the consequences of him forever hating me. One thing I'm so sure of is, I'm in hell, and there's no escaping this. I'm going to stop here now. Not that you guys exactly care, because I know what you think of me. But then I hope you guys learned something or anything from me. Goodbye, guys.